Wanted to ask you about, there certainly has been a lot of discussion about free speech, certainly after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And last week we saw this really play out with the FCC commissioner's comments involving Jimmy Kimmel, the ABC late night host who was temporarily suspended by ABC following comments from the FCC commissioner raising questions about stations, television stations' licenses. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that whole issue.
It is outrageous. I mean, it is a complete governmental overreach to weaponize the FCC and licensure against their stations for a host's comments like that. I mean, it is so out of the constitutional norms of free speech of this country. And I think what you saw is the public had a humongous backlash to that and really responded and felt like this was authoritarianism at its worst. And this is not what this country is about. We have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom to express our political beliefs when they disagree with our leaders. That is a fundamental right of this country. And to be able to insinuate that the federal government is going to weaponize licensure for broadcasters based on the content and the exercise of free speech of a talk show host is the most blatant violation of First Amendment rights. And anyone who believes in the foundational constitutional principles of this country should be mortally offended by what happened, how the government abused and exercised and misused its power. And I was pleased to see that the American public, Republican and Democrat alike, spoke forcefully against that action.
And ABC did air the show once again.
Oh yeah, because they were absolutely wrong. And that was an example of the American public rising up and saying, "Oh no, this is not who we are. This is not the country we want to be. We are not in dictatorship China. We are not in North Korea. We are not in Russia, Putin's Russia. That is how they manipulate speech. That is how their governments control content for their people. That's not who we are in this country. We have free speech. That means everyone gets to speak, whether you agree with it or not. We have the right to do so. And the government cannot weaponize their power in order to abuse the rights of free speech in this country."
And, there is some conversation that I've been reading that some people are starting to say, should, the FCC really have any oversight of content, over broadcast anymore because they don't have that on cable. They don't have that on the internet per se. There's Section 230, but some are saying, is it time for the FCC to get out of that? And does Congress need to change the law? It's over 100 years old.
Well, I think so. I think to your point, we have all these different modes of communication now. Our technology has advanced, and the laws need to be able to keep up with the current flows of information and how content is delivered. What we want is laws that encourage truth, accuracy, factual basis of communications, not falsehoods, not wrongful manipulations of things. Like for example, I have a bill and that I filed to regulate the truth in AI and political advertising that you can't use my image or my voice or yours or something else to falsely portray that we say something. We want accuracy. We want, when you see somebody speaking, you want it to be words that they actually said. But the government should not regulate what I say or how I say it. But I do think we have a role as government to make sure that what is being portrayed is actually and truthfully delivered. So, it's going to be interesting. And I do agree that Congress should probably take a good look at the law and update it to the current norms.
And let me ask you, because there was an admission this week by Google that it was with the Biden administration censoring what some people said, some platforms, et cetera, based on what the government did not like being reported, whether it was criticism of then President Biden or discussions over COVID. What's your reaction to that? Is that right?
No, it's not right. They should, as I said, I think the only method, the only mechanism that should be regulated is we shouldn't allow people to intentionally, falsely manipulate the truth. But if people
How do
are,
you do that though?
well, you put in things in place that regulate libel, you regulate truthful advertising. I have an AI bill, for example, that prohibits the false manipulation of image and voice to create an event, to create the appearance that an event happened when it in fact did not. I mean, we definitely want truth out there. And I think with the development of technology and where it's progressing, sometimes it's hard to blur the lines. You can't even wholly scroll down Facebook these days, and without people going fake, this is false, this is manipulated, this isn't right, this isn't true, this is true. And we're heading down a very dangerous path of just blatant lies and falsehoods, and that cannot be allowed to stand. But when you're accurately reporting the truth, whether it's criticisms of President Biden or criticisms of, or your just belief structure, President Trump or whatever, you should have the right to do that, and the government should not censor that on either side.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. You don't think the government needs to be doing that, regardless of a
Oh,
Democratic administration or Republican administration at all?
oh, that absolutely is not the role of government. We are not an authoritarian regime. We are not a dictatorship. We are a constitutional democracy. And the First Amendment, our founders put in there, the first one is to guarantee the right of freedom of speech. But there are limits. The Supreme Court has put limits on that right. You don't have the right to lie about people. There's certain things you don't have the right to do within your free speech. But as long as you're speaking about your opinions, your belief structures, and if you're going to report facts, they need to be truthful and accurate, then you have the right to do and say whatever you want.